Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Phantom Blaster Overlord deck profile for May 2023. Wanted to update the Phantom Blaster deck. We did get the new Cleodna promo a while back. It's a little more available now with the multiple month releases, so I figured an update was due for the deck. It's a deck that definitely plays a good homage to the past Phantom Blaster deck ever since we've gotten the different Remember cards for D format for the deck. The whole play style still revolves around you being able to retire your own units for the additional plays that Phantom Blaster Overlord can do, and then with the new Cleodna promo being able to give your Blaster Dark on rearguard the additional drive check as well, makes for a pretty scary and powerful pressure deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the ride deck. For our starter, we're running full ballot. We do have the option of running the Wingull and Marin lineup as well in the deck, so you have a target to call out with Blaster Dark. But with the call power, we're not running any orders in the deck, so we really have no fear with the Blaster Javelin play. The biggest risk would just be, calling a trigger, obviously, but we still have the retire for the play. So with full ballot being our starter, our grade 1 is Blaster Javelin. When rode upon by Blaster Dark, reveal the top card of your deck and call it to rear as rest, and if it is a unit card, discard it if it isn't, which they're all unit cards in the deck, so no fear with this play. Our grade 2 being Blaster Dark. This is actually also the only copy we run in the deck because our Phantom Blaster Overlord can allow us to at least call Blaster Dark from our drop zone or soul onto the field with its own skill, meaning we can reuse this card as well. If you wanted to, run an additional copy, there's always a risk with some of the newer cards coming out being able to bind your own cards, Eva being a big one as well. You can increase the number of Blaster Darks that you run in the deck. With some of the other spots I can show you can take out if you want to run more copies of this card. Our grade 3 in the ride deck is Phantom Blaster Overlord, along with the retire power that we have with our Blaster Dark. If we didn't retire a card, getting it a drive check +1 when it's placed on Vanguard or rear, all the better as well for the drive check cost. And also during our turn, if your rear guard was retired this turn, it gets plus 5,000 power. And with Phantom Blaster Overlord being our go-to card in the ride deck, because there are ways to set up Phantom Blaster Dragon in the soul as well with cards like Skull Witch Domain for that setup, along with the copy we are running in the ride deck. We're also running 3 additional copies for the Persona Ride power. If your soul has Phantom Blaster Dragon, it gets critical +1, so it's just a continuous critical +1. So even if you go first for the grade 3 ride, you have that early on pressure of swinging into your opponent with this card. And when it attacks, retire 2 of your rear guards, choose a Blaster Dark from your soul or drop, call it to rear guard, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, that called unit also gets plus 10,000 power to end of turn. This will work very, very well with the Cleodna promo as well for, like I said before, the drive check pressure. Along with the 3 copies of Phantom Blaster Overlord, we are running the 4 copies of Phantom Blaster Dragon. Now this card has just the potential setup for you being able to put it into the soul for the additional critical power of your Phantom Blaster Overlord. It really does not do anything else in the deck, so with this card you're mostly using it as a retire power, being able to have that card just be a rear guard to retire or just a 13k rear guard to attack with as well. Otherwise you're just going to place it into the soul with your Skull Witch Domain for the additional critical that it'll provide to your Phantom Blaster Overlord. We do run other cards just for the additional option for when it's put into the soul, like with our setup with Drilling Angel, if need be, to give us an additional search to call out to rearguard. But other than that, just the 4 additional copies of this card. For our grade 2s, now the one grade 2 I don't have for the deck is Emmeline, the Blaster Searcher for the deck, giving us additional search power for our Blaster cards to add to our hand. If you wanted to run Emmeline, you could always reduce the number of the Phantom Blaster Dragons that we run in the deck for more copies of Emmeline, or you can take out one of the numbers of Domain we run in turn additionally along with the Phantom Blaster Dragons. It's player preference for that specific spot. But starting off for our grade 2s, we are running 4 copies of Knight of Severity, Cleodna. When this unit would be retired for the cost of an ability of your Vanguard with Blaster and its card name, it may be regarded as retiring 2 units. So with Phantom Blaster Overlord, we just have the 1 unit here to retire for its skill, since you just have to retire 2 cards for it. And when it's retired by the ability of your Vanguard with Blaster and its card name, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, choose a Blaster Dark from your rear guard, and it gets auto rear guard once per turn. When this unit attacks, discard a card from your hand, and this unit performs a drive check until end of battle. So with this, at the end of the battle, retire this unit until end of turn. So then it also takes out the Blaster Dark that performed the drive check, but then you can just call it back again with your Phantom Blaster Overlord, and then being able to give it a drive check also makes up for the fact that we were dealing with a deck that fully focused on our, pressure from the Vanguard and just the additional unit that it could call onto the field thanks to this card. This promo does immensely set up more of the playstyle pressure that we were meant to do in this deck, so a definite 4 of, so we have the cards to have a retire cost and then also the additional plays for our drive checks. Also, the 4 copies of Skull Witch Domain. During your turn, if you have a Vanguard Blaster and its card name, it gets plus 5,000, so it's a 10k grade 2 on rear guard, and when this unit is placed on rear, if your Vanguard's clan is only Shadow Paladin, Counterblast 1, put a card from your hand into your soul and draw 2 cards. So you're making up for the potential Phantom Blaster Dragon in your hand. Another thing I like with Domain also is if you have the multiple copies for the draw 2, if you have any other Phantom Blaster Dragons in your hand, you can always put them into the soul additionally, building up your soul, and also just being able to have more of a play for the draw 2 power for this card also. And also, lastly, for the grade 2s, 3 copies of Drilling Angel. Another thing I thought with the additional copies of Drilling Angel, if you wanted to run any other numbers, like if you weren't a fan of the Phantom Blaster Dragon and the Nemain play, you could always drop the number of Nemains down for the Emmeline promo, and then drop the number of Phantom Blaster Dragons additionally for any copies of Ease Rod Angel, just for more units to call onto the rear guard as a better way just to call something out for the use of the soul that we use also, and that helps additionally with our Drilling Angel. When it's placed on rear, put a unit card from drop into soul, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and choose up to 1 card with the same card name as the card put from the soul for this card's cost from them, and call it to rear and shuffle your deck. So it can make up for those Phantom Blaster Dragon Soul Blast if needed for your card, but also setting up more in your soul for you to use and call out depending on what you have from your deck using the multiple cards thanks to Drilling Angel as well. Moving on now to the grade 1s, running 4 copies of Armor Piercing Knight Mugain. When this unit is placed on rear from hand, if you have a Vanguard with Blaster and its card name, discard a card from your hand, look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, and choose up to 2 unit cards from among them, call into rear's rest, and discard the rest. So we all have units in the deck, no other order cards to run, so no fear with the discard investment that you'll make with Mugain, just being able to get more units on the field for you to potentially retire or just set up on the field depending on which ones you may reveal off of this card also, with the other grade 1 retire power we have being the 4 copies of Witch of Pandering Brunner. If you have a Vanguard with Blaster and its card name, when this unit would be retired for your card's cost, it may be regarded as retiring to rear guard. So on top of our Cleodna retiring for 2, we also have Brunner. Most of the time you do want to retire Cleodna so you can get the drive check power off of your Blaster Dark, but still having a backup one if we don't have that other pressure to go to saves us other rear guards from having to be retired, so we can save them for either a attack after our Vanguard and then those additional cards. With the last of the grade 1s just being 4 copies of Aegis Mare, not running the Elementaria Sanctitude because it takes up a spot being a non-unit card to potentially reveal off of plenty of our cards in the deck and not being able to do anything with it, since most of the time, depending on the card we use, it has to be called to rear guard. Moving on now to the grade 0s for our trigger lineup. I do want to run the 4 copies of Blade Feather Dragon, so this would be a 4 of count just for this card. If not, it's not the biggest problem for the into soul plus 2,000 power. It's just an additional option to run in the deck, and 3 copies of Knight of Heavenly Hammer Gargant for the 7 critical lineup that we are going for in the deck. And then for the next trigger choice, for draw triggers being the additional Shield, Protection, Magic, Perobi for the 10k guard, and for our heals, we're running 2 copies of Circulating Sorceress, the 1 copy of Invigorate Sage, and the 1 copy of Hardiness Tier Sorceress for the additional shield power that both of these cards can provide. I was thinking of running the new heal from the set 9 Dragon Tree Invasion, but just a preference if you want to drop one of these other 2 ones like the critical or the Invigorate Sage for that card. With the last overtrigger spot being for a Martinella, just the drive trigger power, on top of the fact that Blaster Dart could have the drive trigger power, but also any of our other rear guards that we called as well. This would be the one benefit I would say to Phantom Blaster Dragon on the rear guard. If we didn't use it for the retire cost, we at least have a grade 3 that we called out that can also perform twin drive if we do reveal the overtrigger. And that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. Like I said, it's an awesome update. We are missing the Emmeline promo, but hopefully with the Festival Collection reprint, they'll be more readily available, and then I'll be able to provide an update to the deck as well once we get those cards. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.